Hi, my name is Michael Lewis. I'm the co-owner and master of beers at Three Ranges Brewing Company. My wife, Rundi Anderson, is my partner in the business and in life. And we own a beautiful little brewery in Valemount, British Columbia. Born and raised in Dallas, Texas. Lived there until I was 17, joined the U.S. Army after graduating high school. Traveled around the world, did Army stuff for 20 years. Finished my career in Washington State at Fort Lewis. There I met a lovely Canadian woman, my bride, Rundi Anderson.
We made a trip to Valemount. My parents had retired here, and we made a trip out here to see them and check out the area, and he really loved it.
I saw this place and I was like, this is beautiful, but there's not a lot of work here. We have to bring our own work. So, well, at the time she was learning my love of beer, realizing how much beer I love to try from all over the world and everything else. And she said, well, you drink enough beer, why don't you just brew it? And there began the saga. Our doors opened on December 6, 2013, and here we are and bustling along. My only exposure to brewing prior to this idea of starting a brewery was a friend of mine that I worked with, another senior warrant officer. He homebrewed kits and made pretty good beer. He brought some of it to work and I took it home and it was pretty good beer. But this kind of concept idea of homebrewing as actually the full extent of all grain and milling and mashing your own grains, and the whole process was completely foreign to me. First two batches were disgusting. It was a pretty steep curve. I signed up for an advanced homebrewing course at UC Davis in California, and when I came back, loaded with an amazing amount of knowledge that these guys put on you in 3 days, I just started immersing myself in reading and everything else because I was retired, I had nothing else to do. And so, yeah, I built a 1 gallon all grain homebrew system. Started homebrewing, bought a little tiny fridge to use as a fermentation chamber. And knowing that in rural areas in BC, you kind of have to have a lager. I worked really hard on that, and my father-in-law, who drank one of the local-ish northern BC lagers at the time, was gonna be my test bed. He gave me his feedback on the first round. I took his favorite beer, narrowed that down, tweaked the recipe a little bit, and went back and brewed 2 more beers off the same recipe with slight variations, brought them back, and the one he picked was, well, what is now our Swift Creek Pilsner. Camera Victoria, a campaign for Real Ale, was holding their annual homebrew competition. I think I entered 3 beers in there, 2 of them placed, and this Pilsner was one that was the last one of the small batch I brewed, and it was sitting in the back and I kind of forgot about it, but I had just enough bottles to enter it, and so I stuck it in. I won the lager category Best of Show and got picked by Phillips as their beer to brew. So it was a bit of a shock to the system, but it was definitely a motivator that kept me into homebrewing and thinking that this was actually something I could do.
And so we just went with it and built a business plan and thought it would be fun. Like, craft beers is kind of fun, and now we found out it's a lot of work, but it's still quite a fun industry to be in. We started building right away. We'd found a building probably the previous fall, and had made plans like what we're going to do to modify it, and it took a long time. We started in January 2013, and they just tore it apart and got the floors ready, built drains, built the cooler, just started getting all the equipment in. I think it was finally in October he started brewing his first batches and getting them into fermentation. So we set a date of early December, probably for almost that whole year. Everyone was like chomping at the bit to get this open. They wanted to taste the beer, and we didn't even have our tanks in yet. So it was really, everyone was so excited about that night. It was really busy in town. It was freezing cold. It was probably like 30 below. And we had the packed tap room. It was just packed, and we had everyone all hands on deck here serving beer, and it was a lot of excitement that night. And people just really happy that we were finally open, and a lot of support right from the beginning.
My assistant Clayton, he walked in the door one day to introduce himself, and he just never left. He's been here and he volunteered here for the longest time and stayed around and has learned how to brew and is the right-hand guy downstairs. In our first year, we were beholden to nothing, and so I got to brew whatever I wanted. Like, it was a matter of, oh, I feel like brewing this. Let's do a small single batch of it. We had our dedicated flagship brands, which I love dearly. My pet project beers are Sacrifice Red Ale. Being a veteran, my assistant is a veteran. You know, it's another bond that we have aside from the beer, and it's something that it's bright in color, but it's got a solid red hue to it, which is about the sacrifice that the veterans, the service members that we've lost, and even their families make. This beer was our project, and we take a percentage of the sales every month. We alternate US and Canadian veterans charities. That's my favorite beer because of what it means to me and what we do with it. We have some really fun beers, our Roll in the Hay Hefeweizen, our spruce beer that we do once a year, just the tip. Valemount Bike Park really came to life last year. Finally, I had the opportunity to build a beer called the Vale Trail Ale. We can take 10% of our sales out of that beer and donate it back to bike park maintenance. The future for Three Ranges, first and foremost, a bigger brew house, so we can just brew one batch a day instead of 4 and alleviate a little bit of the workload in here. But I want to see the growth of our brand inside of our area. To be able to kind of have that hometown feel for folks is where we want to be. Really, my biggest goals are making a positive environment for our community, a positive environment for our employees. Yeah, just do the right thing and make good beer.